From dreams to destiny, from the pit to the palace, this is the story of a man God never abandoned.
These are the generations of Jacob and the beginning of the 12 tribes of Israel. Jacob's residence. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding his father's flock. Jacob loved Joseph differently from the rest of his sons. He made him an expensive coat of many colors. His brothers admired him. They hated him and could not speak peaceably unto him. Rather, they plotted evil against him. Then comes Joseph's dreams. The Holy Spirit started ministering to him in his dreams. After hearing Joseph's dreams, the father asked,
"Shalt thou indeed reign over us? Shall I and thy mother bow down ourselves to thee? Go, I pray thee."
After his brothers returned to the field, Jacob sent Joseph to them. Joseph asks a man directions. He appears confused. "What seekest thou?" the man asked. The man pointed to the hills, where he earlier saw his brothers. Joseph's colorful coat was visible from afar. They started conspiring against him. "Behold, this dreamer cometh." Reuben raises his hand and said, "Shed no blood." Reuben insists that Joseph shouldn't be killed. They grab Joseph and rip off his coat of many colors. And they cast him into a pit. Ishmaelite merchants approach on camels. From Gilead, Judah speaks with cunning confidence.
"Let us sell him."
His brothers rope Joseph upward from the pit. The merchants weigh silver coins into a pouch. He was sold for 20 pieces of silver. They took Joseph away as a slave. When Reuben returns, he found the pit empty. Joseph was already been sold by his other brothers behind him. They decided to find a way to deceive their father about the whereabouts of Joseph, since they cannot tell him the truth. They butchered a goat and the blood smeared onto the colorful coat. Then took the coat to their father Jacob, and said unto him,
"Know now whether it be thy son's coat."
Jacob falls to knees in sorrow and weeps loudly, holding the torn coat. Joseph is without doubt rent in pieces. Joseph walks in chain in the desert heat toward Egyptian city. Potiphar, high-ranking Egyptian officer with ornate collar and collars, examines Joseph. Potiphar bought him after examining Joseph. Joseph started managing household tasks with diligence. He was being observed carefully. Joseph became a loyal, hard-working servant in a very short time. The Lord was with Joseph. Potiphar nodding approvingly, and he made him overseer. He was pleased with Joseph's hard work and loyalty. Joseph became the head servants and oversees all the field slaves. Joseph reading scrolls, calm and steady, he knew not aught he had. Then the devil started plotting against Joseph through his master's wife. Yet it was God's divine plan to test Joseph's loyalty to him. Potiphar's wife stared longingly at Joseph. She approaches Joseph sexually.
Lie with me.
Joseph steps back firmly.
How can I do this great wickedness?
She repeatedly attempts, but Joseph refused her. She grabbed Joseph's garment. Joseph's garment was ripped off while he fled. Potiphar's wife screams, holding Joseph's garment.
He came in to mock me.
Potiphar's face filled with fury. He rages in anger, and he ordered his immediate arrest. Joseph was caught and was arrested. Joseph was escorted into the prison on the charge of rape as alleged by Potiphar's wife. But the Lord was with Joseph. Prison keeper observes Joseph quietly. After much observations, the prison keeper hands Joseph keys and scrolls to manage tasks. He found favor in the sight of the keeper. This was all orchestrated by God to alleviate Joseph for doing his will. By overcoming Potiphar's sexual assault, Joseph started organizing prisoners and assigning duties calmly. He supervises with wisdom. That which he did, the Lord made it to prosper. Pharaoh's butler was arrested and escorted into Joseph's prison cell. While Joseph was doing his daily routine prisoner checking, he discovered the sad butler and baker.
Wherefore, you look ye so sadly today?
Butler and baker explain anxiously.
We have both dreamed, and we don't understand.
Joseph raises hand humbly and said,
Do not interpretations belong to God?
After listening to their dreams, Joseph interpreted their dreams. He told the baker,
Within 3 days, Pharaoh shall hang thee.
Joseph speaks gently to the butler.
Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine head. Think on me, make mention of me unto Pharaoh.
This was the beginning of Joseph's destiny. God took Joseph through a season of training, where every trial and every test was preparing him for the purpose he had ordained. That season gave birth to Joseph's destiny. On Pharaoh's birthday, he rendered judgment just as Joseph had interpreted. The chief cupbearer butler was restored to his position and returned to Pharaoh's service, while the chief baker was executed. Everything happened exactly as Joseph had said. Yet, after being restored, the chief cupbearer returned to the palace and forgot the man who had brought him hope in prison. Joseph remained in prison, but God had not forgotten him. What seemed like a delay was actually part of God's preparation for the fulfillment of Joseph's destiny. Time passes. The sun rises and sets over the prison courtyard, but Joseph remains forgotten. Then, one night, Pharaoh is troubled by two mysterious dreams. He sees 7 healthy cows grazing by the Nile. Suddenly, 7 gaunt cows rise from the river and devour them. In another dream, 7 full ears of grain appear on one stalk. Then 7 thin, withered ears swallow the healthy grain. Pharaoh awakens shaken. He summons all the magicians and wise men of Egypt, but no one can interpret his dreams. There was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. Then the chief cupbearer remembered. I do remember my faults this day. Standing before Pharaoh, he humbly spoke of a Hebrew prisoner who had interpreted his dream. At once, Pharaoh sent for Joseph. The palace guards hurried to the prison. Joseph was brought out, shaved, clothed in clean garments, and prepared to stand before the king. Joseph stood before Pharaoh and declared, "It is not in me. God will give Pharaoh an answer of peace." Pharaoh recounted both dreams, and Joseph answered with calm confidence. The 2 dreams are one. God has revealed what he is about to do. 7 years of abundance would fill the land, followed by 7 years of devastating famine. Then Joseph offered wise counsel. Let Pharaoh appoint officers over the land and gather 1/5 of the harvest during the years of plenty. Pharaoh rose in amazement and said, "Can we find such a man as this, one in whom is the Spirit of God?" Joseph was immediately appointed. Pharaoh removed his signet ring and placed it on Joseph's hand, a symbol of authority over all Egypt. He clothed Joseph in fine linen, placed a gold chain around his neck, and declared, "You shall be over my house." Pharaoh organized a beautiful marriage ceremony for Joseph and gave him a new name, Zaphenath-Paneah, and gave him Asenath as his wife in the ceremony. God lifted Joseph. Joseph rode in Pharaoh's chariot, and all the people that gathered to celebrate them bowed to them as their new counselor. He was honored by the people of Egypt as according to Pharaoh's decree. Joseph started planning and mediated according to the interpretation of the dreams. God bestowed upon him divine wisdom to guide him while planning. Just as God had revealed, 7 years of abundance filled the land. Joseph gathered grain in such great measure that it could no longer be counted. It was exactly as he interpreted. Joseph makes sure he and his team gather more than more than enough for the people of Egypt. In time, 2 sons were born to Joseph. He named the first Manasseh, saying, "God has made me forget all my toil," and the second Ephraim, "For God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction." Then the years of plenty came to an end, and the famine began. But Egypt had bread because Joseph had prepared. People from every nation came to Egypt to buy grain. Far away in Canaan, Jacob heard the news and said to his sons, "I have heard that there is grain in Egypt. Go down there and buy some for us, that we may live and not die." Joseph's brothers arrived in Egypt to buy grain, unaware that the governor standing before them was the brother they had once betrayed. Joseph recognized them immediately, but they did not recognize him. Just as he had dreamed years before, they bowed before him. Speaking through an interpreter, Joseph questioned them sternly. "Where do you come from?" "From the land of Canaan," they replied, "to buy food." Joseph tested them. "You are spies." "No, my lord," they pleaded. "We are honest men." Then Joseph asked the question that had weighed on his heart for years. "Is your father still living? And what of your youngest brother?" When they spoke of Jacob and Benjamin, Joseph's heart was deeply moved. He turned away, struggling to hide his emotions. Joseph placed his brothers in custody for 3 days. On the 3rd day, he offered them a test. One brother would remain behind while the others returned home, but they must bring their youngest brother, Benjamin, back to Egypt. The brothers looked at one another and said, "We are truly guilty concerning our brother." Reuben replied,
Did I not tell you not to sin against the boy?
Hearing their words, Joseph turned away and wept. When he returned, he ordered Simeon to be bound before their eyes. Then he filled their sacks with grain and secretly returned each man silver. As they journeyed home, one of the brothers opened his sack and found his money. Fear gripped them, and they said, "What is this that God has done to us?" When they returned to Canaan, they told Jacob everything that had happened. In anguish he cried, "You have bereaved me of my children." Then he refused to let Benjamin go. Benjamin was Joseph's younger brother, the only other son born to Jacob and Rachel, the wife he loved most. After Joseph disappeared, Jacob believed he had lost him forever. Benjamin was all that remained of Rachel, and Jacob could not bear the thought of losing him too. To Jacob, Benjamin was more than a son. He was the last living reminder of Joseph and Rachel. Letting him go meant trusting God with the one treasure he feared losing most. But the famine grew more severe, and when their food was gone, Jacob said, "Go again and buy us a little food." Judah stepped forward and pledged his own life for Benjamin's safety. At last, with a grieving heart, Jacob agreed, "If I am bereaved of my children, I am bereaved." He sent them with gifts and double the silver, and Benjamin went with his brothers to Egypt. When Joseph saw Benjamin standing among them, his heart was deeply moved. He asked, "Is this your younger brother, of whom you spoke?" Joseph's emotions overflowed, and he left the room to weep in private. He composed himself and ordered a feast to be prepared. The brothers were seated in exact order by age, astonishing them. None could understand how this Egyptian ruler knew them so well. Benjamin was especially favored and received a portion far greater than the others. After the meal, Joseph gave a secret command to his steward. The silver cup was hidden in Benjamin's sack. At dawn, the brothers departed, unaware of what had been placed among their goods. Soon after, Joseph's steward was sent after them. He stopped them on the road and accused them, saying, "Why have you repaid evil for good, one by one?" Their sacks were opened. Fear began to rise as the search moved closer to Benjamin. Joseph was anxiously waiting for this moment. The silver cup was found in Benjamin's sack. The brothers were devastated. Tearing their clothes in grief, they cried, "God has found out the guilt of your servants." They returned to Egypt and fell before Joseph once again. Joseph confronted them, but this time Judah stepped forward. With humility and courage, he pleaded for mercy, explaining their father's deep love for Benjamin and the sorrow another loss would bring. Then Judah made an extraordinary offer. "Please let your servant remain here as my lord's slave in place of the boy, and let the boy return with his brothers." Hearing Judah's selfless plea, Joseph could no longer restrain his emotions. He ordered every Egyptian to leave the room, alone, with his brothers. Joseph broke down and wept so loudly that his cries echoed throughout Pharaoh's palace. Unable to contain his emotions any longer, Joseph makes sure no Egyptian was on sight. He wept uncontrollable. At last, Joseph stepped forward and said, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" His brothers stood speechless. Gripped with fear, they could not believe the governor of Egypt was the brother they had sold into slavery years before. Seeing their terror, Joseph gently called them closer. "Come near to me, I pray you. I am Joseph your brother, whom you sold into Egypt." Then came words they never expected to hear. "Do not be grieved or angry with yourselves. God sent me before you to preserve life." Joseph understood what they could not see years earlier, that behind betrayal, slavery, and prison, God's sovereign hand had been at work all along. "So now it was not you who sent me here, but God." Joseph urged his brothers, "Return quickly to my father. Tell him that God has made me lord over all Egypt. Bring him here without delay." He promised to provide for Jacob and his entire household in the land of Goshen, for 5 years of famine still remained. Then Joseph embraced Benjamin, and they wept together. One by one, he embraced each of his brothers, and tears of sorrow were replaced with tears of reconciliation. When news reached Pharaoh that Joseph's family had come, Pharaoh was pleased. He commanded that royal wagons be sent to bring Jacob and his household to Egypt, promising them the best of the land. Joseph loaded his brothers with provisions for the journey and, as they departed, gave them one final instruction: "See that you do not quarrel along the way." With grateful hearts, the brothers began their journey back to Canaan, carrying news that would change their father's life forever. So, they departed Egypt happily. Before appearing before Pharaoh, Joseph instructed his brothers to tell the truth about their occupation, saying, "We are shepherds." When they stood before Pharaoh, they answered with humility, and Pharaoh welcomed them, granting them the fertile land of Goshen. Then Joseph presented his father to Pharaoh. Jacob stood before the king and blessed him. So Joseph settled his family in the best of the land and faithfully provided food for them throughout the famine. As the famine grew more severe across Egypt, the people exchanged their livestock, their land, and their labor for grain. Joseph administered the crisis with wisdom, establishing a law that 1/5 of the harvest would belong to Pharaoh. Meanwhile, Jacob lived in peace in the land of Goshen, surrounded by his children and grandchildren, witnessing God's faithfulness in the very land where Joseph's suffering had become the means of their salvation. Joseph's story is more than the story of a dreamer. It is the story of a God who keeps his promises. What began in a pit led to a prison. What began with betrayal ended in restoration. Every tear, every trial, every delay, and every disappointment became part of God's divine plan. Joseph could have become bitter, but he chose to trust God. He could have sought revenge, but he chose forgiveness. He understood that what people meant for evil, God was working together for good. The same God who was with Joseph in the pit was with him in the prison, in the palace, and in the fulfillment of his destiny. His circumstances changed, but God's presence never did. Perhaps you are in your own season of waiting. Perhaps your dreams seem delayed, or your prayers unanswered. Remember Joseph. Delay is not denial. God's timing is perfect, and his purpose is never defeated. If God gave you the dream, he will also prepare you for it. Trust him in the process. Remain faithful in the waiting. Forgive those who have hurt you. And when God's appointed time comes, no prison, no betrayal, and no obstacle can stop what he has ordained. The God of Joseph is still writing stories of redemption today. Trust him, because the author never abandons his plan. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to PME TV for more Bible stories. Thank you for watching.